Hello. Today I have prepared an info video about director Nolan. Let's start with the life story first. Christopher Nolan, born July 30, 1970, London, England. British film director and writer acclaimed for his Noirish visual aesthetic and unconventional, often highly conceptual narratives. Nolan was raised by an American mother and a British father, and his family spent time in both Chicago and London. As a child, he attended Haileybury, a boarding school just outside London. From a young age, Nolan was interested in movie making and would use his father's Super 8 camera to make shorts. He was influenced by George Lucas' Star Wars trilogy and by the immersive dystopian films of Ridley Scott. After attending University College London, where he studied English literature, Nolan began directing corporate and industrial training videos. At the same time, he was working on his first full-length release, following 1998. The film centered on a writer going to dangerous lengths to find inspiration. It took Nolan 14 months to complete. On the strength of its success on the festival circuit, he and his producer wife moved to Hollywood. Nolan's breakthrough came with the 2000 film Memento, a sleeper hit that he adapted from a short story written by his brother Jonathan. It used a destabilizing reverse-order storyline to mirror the fractured mental state of its protagonist, a man with short-term amnesia who is trying to track down the person who murdered his wife. The film was a critical and popular success and garnered the Nolan brothers an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Screenplay. Nolan followed up with Insomnia 2002, a thriller set in the Alaskan wilds, which starred Al Pacino as a compromised police detective. Viewed by many as a writer-filmmaker, Nolan's visual style, which often dwells on urban spaces, men in suits, quiet tones, and conversation scenes, was framed by modern spaces and architecture in wide close-ups. Aesthetically, the director prefers documentary-style lighting, natural venues, and real shooting locations in his studio work. Nolan said all his films were heavily influenced by film noir. Nolan has consistently experimented with superfiction elements, oval cut, solipsist point of view, nonlinear storytelling, devious subjects, and the combination of style and shape. During his time with composer David Julyan, Nolan's films featured slow and atmospheric music with minimalist expressions and ambient textures. Nolan started working with Hans Zimmer in 2005. The soundscape in Zimmer and Nolan's films evolved to become increasingly lush and lively. Nolan described the filmmaking process as a combination of intuition and geometry, and Nolan opposed the use of digital intermediates and digital cinematography, which he felt were less reliable and offered lower image quality for the film. In particular, he advocates the use of higher quality, larger format film stock such as anamorphic 35mm, VistaVision, 65mm, and IMAX. For special effects, Nolan prefers to minimize the amount of computer-generated imagery for his films, but to use practical effects whenever possible, and to use imagery only to enhance the elements displayed on the camera. Nolan's work explores existential, ethical, and epistemological issues such as subjective experience, memory deterioration, human morality, the nature of time, and the construction of personal identity. His characters are often emotionally disturbed and morally ambiguous when faced with fears and anxieties of loneliness, guilt, jealousy, and greed. Now let's move on to what Nolan has made in movies instead of using visual effects. The idea of shooting down a real plane is actually an excerpt from The Black Knight Rising. But in Tenet was actually shot. Nolan prefers reality rather than using visual effects, and even if this scene involves building an entire abandoned town or crashing a real plane. In the movie Tenet, Nolan did indeed buy a Boeing 747 and crash it into a building he built. At the same time, all of the gold used in the scene of this plane crashing into the building is real. Gold bullion was bought for this scene before the movie and sold at a higher price after the movie. The buildings that were exploded in some scenes of the movie were indeed made for the movie and were blown up during the movie. Nolan's budget for the Batman movie was exactly $150 million. Nolan wanted a real Batmobile to be built because of the high budget. The Thumbler vehicle has a racing truck suspension and a 5.8-liter engine, and this vehicle could be produced in 9 months. A total of that 4 vehicles were produced for $1 million, and these vehicles were tested by professional stuntmen in Chicago. In the Dark Knight movie, the truck used by the Joker is indeed exploded with metal cables and TNT, turned over and overturned. Again, in the movie Dark Knight Rises, the scene of a plane carrying another plane and people falling from the plane was actually shot, and these shootings took about 2 days. The movie Inception is also a movie in which real vehicles are explosions instead of visual effects. The scenes in the bistro explosion were actually exploded using high-pressure nitrogen, and these images were shot with high-quality cameras and added to film with montage. The scene of a train running through the middle of a street in Los Angeles really happened. A train engine and a model of the train were placed on a tractor trailer, allowing it to travel on the road. In the hotel scene, a giant rotating system of 30 meters was made for the fight of Arthur in the rotating corridor, and it was shot without the use of visual effects and stunts. A huge stage was built for the space known as the Tesseract in the movie Interstellar. With the cables, the lead actor really floated in the air, and the scene where he was watching his daughter without the use of visual effects took place in the library scene. Also, for the scene in this movie where the car passes over the cornfield, a really big field is planted with corn. When the corn grew, he shot the chase scene inside the field by car and then had the corn mowed and sold. As you can see, Nolan is indeed a person who has made a name for himself and has already taken his place among the best directors ever. We hope we can see more beautiful movies like this than him. Take care, to see you in the new video.